In this video, we're talking about encryption, hashing, and the differences between the two. Hi everybody, welcome to StudioSec. Thank you for watching. Like this video if it's helpful, comment down below with your thoughts on encryption and hashing, what a topic, and subscribe for more content I'm posting every week. Information is precious and valuable. Now, if you are in cybersecurity, if you're in IT, maybe you work with information elsewhere, you definitely know this. Maybe you don't work in those areas, you definitely know this. Like it's a pretty well understood rule by now that information is one of the most valuable resources your organization possesses. Now with that, attackers are trying to get it. If they can't get it, then they're trying to destroy it, and defenders are trying to protect it. Now, with all of this said, and we're gonna throw a curveball, just because you have information doesn't mean you're able to actually read it. And by that, I mean information can be hashed or encrypted to prevent prying eyes from understanding the information once they have it. Now, if you are coming from the CIA Triad video, and if you aren't, then maybe you can check it out next. Here's a link to that video. This is part of the confidentiality arm of the CIA Triad. Now let's talk about these. And we're gonna start with encryption, right? Encryption kind of works information through a function, right? Or through what's called a cipher, right? And it converts that data into something garbled or unreadable, right? So we're gonna kind of go with ROT13, right? It's a old, basically a shift cipher, right? Where it shifts every letter in the alphabet 13 places to the right? And so, this, sentence A can be a garbled mess in sentence B. And we'll throw an example right here, right? But encryption, it's designed to make sure that, once information is passed through the cipher, then it is unreadable. But you want it to be decrypted, right? And so you'll use, a key or something like that to decrypt it. It's basically an inverse function of the original function. So you have function A, which encrypts the information, then function B, which function B is the inverse of function A, and that decrypts that information. And kind of the origin of encryption, right? If you want to think about wartime, whenever, two sides are trying to share, or, one side is trying to get information, to elements farther on down the line, right? But the enemy is trying to read in on that information to gain valuable intelligence. Well, let's say, a messenger gets captured. You want to make sure that even though that messenger has that information, it's encrypted or it's unreadable. It's not able to be understood or digested by the enemy. So even though they capture the information and they're in possession of it, they can't read it. And so at that point, it's a matter of time till they can figure out the cipher if they can. And historically that has been a case, but that's kind of the origin of encryption. A very famous historical example is Enigma in World War II, where the Germans, the German Navy and the German Army were able to use a very advanced cipher that was nicknamed Enigma to be able to communicate with itself all across the Eastern and the Western fronts. Well, because of the hard work of Allied engineers that are super smart, way smarter than I am, they were able to figure it out. Alan Turing is actually, he's one of the guys that he took part of that. He's kind of the father of modern day computing. He's, a great guy to look up, take a look, very interesting fellow. And I say fellow, he's British, so that's exciting. But yeah, they pretty much, they developed, the great grandfather of modern day computers. They were able to break Enigma. They were able to be able to decode German messages, and that changed the outcome of the war, because now Allies were able to hear what Germany was saying to its navy and allow Allied soldiers to get across the Atlantic and to really kind of have a step forward in Europe. Enough about history. We're talking about encryption. Now there are two different kinds of encryption. There's asymmetric key encryption and there's symmetric key encryption. And we're gonna talk about symmetric first because that's the most basic. So symmetric keys, there's only one key, all right? There's only one key, and that key, we kind of consider it to be, a variable. So you have, your encryption algorithm, right? and you know, your key is a unique identifier saying, okay, this is me, and you know, this message is coming from me and I'm sending it to you. So I'm gonna send you the key, right? And you can decrypt it. Now that key, it can both encrypt and it can decrypt. So I will use my key to encrypt this message. I'll send the message and I'll send you my key. And then you can use my key to decrypt the message, right? Does that make sense? And so that is symmetric key encryption. Now, asymmetric key encryption, there are two keys. There's a private key and there's a public key. So say I want to give you a message, I will encrypt my message with my private key, all right? And then I will send the message to you, and then you will be able to use my public key, which I don't have to give it, it's public. You can just take it for yourself. So you can take my public key and you can decrypt the message yourself, right? And that's asymmetric key encryption. So, you know, it's very, it's good to know the differences between these two. They are used in different scenarios. Now, mind you, symmetric key encryption is much faster than asymmetric key encryption. So obviously the deployment's gonna be different, but likewise, symmetric key uses one key, right? So, you know, let's say a bad guy was posing as you, right? Or whatever, and I think I'm sending you a message, but I'm actually sending it to the bad guy. Well, now the bad guy has my key, so that's not good. So you'd probably want to use asymmetric key encryption to coordinate a secure channel. And then in that secure channel where we can verify, okay, you are who you say you are, I am who I say I am. At that point, we can default to symmetric key encryption where the information is still encrypted while traveling through the internet, but we can use faster encryption method. Mind you, if you're an attacker, encryption, it can be broken, but it really takes time. If you remember, these are math algorithms that we're putting this data through. So just because you have it doesn't mean you can crack it. It will take a long time, right? You'd have to have a pretty beefy computer that can handle, many threads, like thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of, attempts on an algorithm. And you're just, that's kind of brute forcing a hashing an encryption algorithm and trying to break it. But it's been done before, so who's to say modern encryption won't be broken again? Now, mind you, encryption can be encrypted and it can be decrypted. Now, with that, we're going to talk about hashing. And the difference between encryption and hashing is hashing can be hashed, but it cannot be unhashed, right? It is one way. So, once you hash a particular data set, it's hashed. It's there forever. You're not going to be able to unhash it, right? And so, like that, you would want to use hashing to secure information that maybe you're storing for a long time. Maybe it's information that you want to verify is unchanged. So here's another important tidbit. Let's say you have 10,000 document paper, right? And you hash that document. Now, if someone gets a hold of that document and they change just one space in that entire document, just one, then your hash, which is just going to be a long garbled mess of characters and numbers and letters, that will completely change. The whole hash will completely change. And so that's how you can verify whether a piece of software, whether a document that you've received has been unchanged, is the pure document, right? Is that the hash of what you just downloaded matches the hash that maybe they posted online saying, this is what you should see if you hash your document. And that's a very important way of identifying that. Another way is if you store passwords, you probably want to store your passwords in a hash, right? So it's not in clear text. And so whenever user logs in, they'll type in their password, and then that password will be made into a hash. And if that hash matches the hash that you have on file, they're good to go. But obviously if it doesn't, then they're not. So you can still verify information, but it is not using the clear text. Now, mind you, there are some instances, such as like with MD5, for example, where you can have two different values that produce the same hash. That is called collision, or a collision. And that's something that attackers can use if they know that you're using what's called like a broken hash, and again, MD5 is one of those. You know, they don't necessarily need to have the exact data set that maybe you've hashed. They just need to have one that produces the same hash. And once they produce a collision, then they're able to gain access. So mind you, just to reiterate here, right? Encryption is two directions. You can encrypt and you can decrypt, and hashing is one way. You know, once it's hashed, it's hashed. And mind you, and both rely on math to work, right? These are complex math algorithms that they're going through, you know, and that's why computers are great, right? They can just solve it really quick. But you know, some computers can solve them a lot faster, some solve them a lot slower, so it also depends on the kind of hardware that you have. And so as you can imagine, as computers get faster, the algorithms will be able to get more complex. And so, you know, if you have, you know, hashing and encryption algorithms today that are a lot stronger than what were around 10 or 20 years ago, right? But if you look at the advancement in computing, then in 10 to 20 years, you know, let's say with quantum computing, you know, who knows how fast it's going to make computing compared to now. And you know, the kinds of advanced math functions, those are going to be able to calculate in an instant, right? Those will be able to work with much more intense and secure levels of hashing and hashing and encryption that normal computers just won't be able to do. So, pop quiz. Is MD5 an example of hashing or encryption? Comment down below with your answer. Like this video if it was helpful, and subscribe for more content I'm posting every week. Thank you.